It's Tuesday of Holy Week. Jesus had just stayed the night once again in Bethany, and he goes back into Jerusalem. While there, he's questioned by those who, according to the religious system, have all the authority. They're the experts, the teachers, the one who you've been trying to get a few minutes with. But they try to stump Jesus, and Jesus, he flips the script on them. In short, what happens is that everyone realizes actually Jesus who has the authority. So Jesus reveals this through a conversation, who really has the power, but then he leaves Jerusalem again. Jesus has just established that he actually has the authority. He trumps the religious leaders, so the next logical step would be to establish his throne in Jerusalem, right? To establish his kingdom there. But what the disciples begin to realize is that Jesus' authority is playing out different than the way the world establishes authority. His authority is looking different than their plans, and maybe more than anything, his authority is something outside of what the disciples and even religious leaders can predict or control. So the question is, when Jesus announces his authority, but his power doesn't line up with your plans, what do you do? Here's what the disciples was facing on this Tuesday. Do I believe in Jesus' authority or my expectations of his authority? Maybe another way to say this is, do I really want what he wants, or do I just want his power for my own plan? At the heart of this is the beauty of pure faith, because faith isn't just about believing in the power of Jesus, it's about believing in the way of Jesus, even when it doesn't seem like it's going your way. His authority, faith, and surrender goes hand in hand. See, Jesus, he leaves Jerusalem and he goes back up to the Mount of Olives. And on that mountain, Jesus will prophesy of what is to come. But in order for the disciples to hear this promise on that mountain where Jesus establishes power once and forever and reveals his promise of what is to come, it requires going through the Kidron Valley. That's literally have to walk through the valley to get to the mountain. And the reality is our spiritual walk. The path to the mountain of faith often begins with walking through a valley of surrender. For the disciples, even as Jesus lead them away from Jerusalem, away from the very place they expected him to take his throne, away from the place he just established his authority, away from everything they thought was the key to the promise fulfilled. They are instead taken on an invitation, a path that is teaching them to trust that Jesus' authority is not located on one place or our plan or to a specific worldly position. His authority is in heaven and on earth. It is over all power and principalities and all plans. So on Tuesday of Holy Week, if you're currently walking through a time that seems to be the opposite of the way you expected God to work, Jesus is inviting you on the same path he leads the disciples on, the path of surrender, to wake up from your illusion of control and your expectation of what life should look like with him, and walk that valley of surrender that will allow you to step onto the mountain of faith. He has all the authority. He has all the power. His ways are better and higher than yours, and all you need to do is trust him.